Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Got another project here we're working on today. This is actually kind of a continuation to a project that I was working on, I don't know, it's probably been a little over a year ago now, when I made this part right here. This is a spindle, a shaft that goes into a pretty old Syracuse oscillating spindle sander that a friend of mine is working on restoring. He asked me to make the shaft. We made the shaft. I got all that done. I sent it all back to him. And then he got back to me and said, you know what, I really need for you to make another part for this thing that's just worn out. So I ended up getting the shaft back, as well as a couple other pieces here. We got the casting, and the part that we're actually making is this little disc. And I'll zoom you in over here where you can kind of see what we're dealing with, what we need to do to get this thing back up and running. So what you're looking at here, this is the actual casting for the body for this sander, and this shaft actually kind of fits down in here, and it kind of oscillates up and down. Let me move my hand, or maybe you can see that. So this kind of goes in the center here. It's oscillating up and down while it's spinning, and this attaches above a table up above it that you put your actual sander on, a round sander, and like I said, it's an oscillating spindle sander. So down in this part is the gut, just the bearings, just the drive, all that kind of stuff. I'm not too much worried about that. But right here on the top, there is a little disc, a little plate that actually, whoops, pick that up off the floor. But this little disc is actually threaded and goes in here kind of like such. This one here is really messed up, so it doesn't want to thread very well, which is part of the reason we're going to make a new piece. All right, so again, that's just kind of a cover. The oscillating spindle goes up and down through here. But this piece here, the actual plate, this is what we need to make. So you look at it, it's a disc, I don't know, what is that? About 1/4 of an inch thick, 250 thousandths thick. Diameter on it, about 3 1/4 inches, a little less than that. We'll call it 3 1/4 for right now. And this is a 20 thread per inch thread on the outside that screws up in this housing. Has a bore in the middle that needs to be just a little bit larger than the shaft that's going through here, which is 1 inch in diameter. So we'll probably make this, I don't know, 15, probably 25 thousandths over, just to give some clearance so that it can go up and down. On the bottom here, there's a little recess. These little ground marks are for grease to go into. He specifically said don't worry about putting those in, that he would take care of that. He wants to do that himself. But we do need to kind of on this back side, it has a little recess in here. We'll have to measure that, put that in there. And the other thing he wants done is he wants a couple of 2/4 inch flat bottom holes that do not go all the way through, that he can put a spanner wrench on to actually take this in and out. So that's kind of what we're making. We got our original part here to use as a template to work off of. We got our casting here that's threaded that we can actually check the threads on when we make them to make sure that everything fits. This is not a standard thread, so we just got to make it where it's going to fit. But that's what we're after. And I'm going to show you about how we're going to go about doing this. Most of this is going to be done on the lathe, and we'll get over there in just a minute and show you kind of what my thought is on how we're going to make this part. So I've dug around looking for a piece of stock, and basically what I found was this little cut off piece of shafting of some kind. Again, this part here is about 3 1/4 inches. This is about 4 inches in diameter. I was looking for some 3 1/2, couldn't find anything. This is just a little short piece that was laying around, and instead of trying to cut it off, I'm just going to machine it on the end of that, and we won't lose any more material than we have to. You know, I know some of you guys are going to ask, what kind of steel is this? It's mystery steel. We don't know. I don't know. It was just something that we had laying around out here at the museum. There's no telling, that piece of metal could be 100 years old. In fact, it's likely that it came off of something out here at the museum. that's been around a long time, but you know, it really doesn't. It's not that critical, I don't think, for a part like this to be made from a certain grade or certain, you know, if ideally if we were making it and ordering a piece, you know, I could specify that, but just don't know and it doesn't matter. So game plan here is we're going to first turn down probably, I don't know, probably 3/4 of an inch or so down to the diameter. We'll probably go ahead and drill and bore that hole in the center to the correct size. Then I will go ahead and thread this on the end. We will then part the piece off, and I will then turn around and remount it and machine the backside, get it to the proper thickness and all that. So that's the game plan. Let's get going. All right, we'll start by facing the end of this, getting it just good and flat. We got a little bit of run out. Of course, that end makes it look worse right there because it's not straight, but there is a little bit of run out. I'm not worried about that. We're going to take so much material off of this that it's just not going to matter. It's actually running pretty true up here at the truck. I think it's just not in there straight, and I hammered around on a little bit, but it's not that critical. This piece of metal is not perfectly round either, so it may just be in the stock. But again, we're going to take it down below the dimension that it's at, so it'll clean up and the part we machine will be true. I'm going to just turn down about 3/4 of an inch on this. We're only going to need 1/4 of an inch, but that just gives me plenty to work with. I'm going to put a witness mark there so I know where to stop. And start cutting this out. I'm going to put a center in the end. I think that'll give it some support. Since things were moving around a little bit there, I'm just going to reface the front here now, real lightly. Don't need much, but I can see it's not in plane yet anymore. We'll put that center in there, and that center should hold it in place. I think what's happening is my bar is flexing a little bit, taking these big cuts. No big deal. We can take care of that real easy. All right, let's take another pass on this and see if that doesn't fix our chattering problem here. Much better. So we're need about 14 more to go. We go about a 1/2,000th under what I was shooting for. That's plenty good enough. So we're going to go ahead and thread this. I've got a threading tool in here. slowed my lathe down a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is just put a nice big chamfer up here. I think it'll just make me feel better. And I think it'll help you guys see the camera angle a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and chamfer the front leading edge of this. That's probably good. And I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to thread into about right in here. I'm just going to go ahead and put me a mark in there that I can kind of shoot for when I'm threading to kick it out. That's deeper than what we actually want. So now I'm going to come in here, we're just barely touching, and I'm going to make a scratch pass through here. Check my thread pitch. Take my thread gauge, verify that we are on 20 threads per inch, and we are. All right, we're going to do a test fit here and kind of see where we're at. Give me just a second. All right, we're coming in here with the casting, and let's see if it'll thread on there. Feels like it started. Yep. Look at that. Perfect. Feels like a good fit. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead and get this off and we'll go to the next step. So we need a hole in the center that's about 25 thousandths over an inch. So we'll start with a 1/2 inch drill. We'll drill it up to an inch and then bored out that last little bit. So I've got a 1/2 inch drill bit in there right now, and let's just go ahead and puncture on in. You speed it up just a little bit. All right, we're set up to bore this. Before I do, I want to get a good measurement on where we're at. You know, a lot of times with a drill bit, it'll drill a little bit over, a little bit under, depending on the bit. So you want to always find out where you're starting from. So I'm just using a little snap gauge, a telescoping gauge here. And it looks like we're about 3 thousandths over. I want to go to about 25 thousandths over. And that's give or take. So I think I'm just going to make a 20 thousandths pass, and that should give me all the clearance I need. We'll be in good shape. So I've got a boring bar set up in here. I'm going to go ahead and dial in 20 thousandths. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, right there. Let her rip. That's going to be good enough. We just want a little bit of clearance in there. Next step here is we're going to go ahead and part this off. Now I want to just make a couple of comments here. Mainly that I'm going to part this off thicker than the actual finished part. The part's going to be 1/4 of an inch thick, 250 thousandths. We're going to part it at about 400 thousandths thick, just because more than likely the back side of this isn't going to be very pretty. We're going to have to face it off. And I need to remove some material and do some other stuff on that side anyway. So I'm leaving a little bit of extra thickness there to work with just in case it doesn't go just exactly straight or whatever. That's fine. So we're going to go ahead now and tell you what, well, I think that'll be fine. Let's see how she goes. I'm about to slow it down. Larger diameter in this is just a lot of surface feet per minute on that larger diameter. So it's just going to take our time and work our way through this. Well, this isn't going well. I think I'm going to go to plan B here. We've got some wobble in here that's just come from the pressure. This part's sticking out too far, and I probably should have cut it shorter, but I just hated to mess up such a good piece of stock and waste that much. So I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to take this off. We'll slice it off on the bandsaw and continue to turn around. We can still face it off like we want to on the other side. So we've got our disc here kind of made. The back side of it is rough. We need to get it to the proper thickness. And really, there's not a good way to mount this in a lathe like it is unless you had a big collet or something. I wouldn't want to grip it in a chuck on the outside of these threads because it could damage them. And plus it probably wouldn't be lined up just exactly right. So what I want to do is actually make a special fixture to hold this thing while I'm turning it, and it's basically just going to be a little mandrel that this fits up onto, and we're just going to use glue, super glue, to glue it in place while we machine it, and then we can take some heat, break that bond loose when we're done, and take the finished part off. So I've got just another piece of scrap stock in here, mystery metal, who knows what it is, doesn't really matter. And we're gonna face it, turn it back, basically where this will fit up on that piece right there. It will center it up on that hole, and then we can glue it in place. So let's get this done. See if this fits up on there. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a nice tight fit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the back of that. So we're about ready to put this together, but first thing I want to do is get everything cleaned up real good. So I've got some lacquer thinner here and a clean paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe this thing up real good. Make sure we get all that stuff off. Same thing on the plate here that we're going to glue in place. Want to make sure we get all that oil that was on here off. And I got some paper residue over there I need to clean up on that mandrel. So now I got my super glue. I'm gonna just put a little good liberal about on here, and we'll slide that up on there. And I'm gonna put this little block in. Excuse me for getting in the way. All right, and I'm just pressing up against that with the center, or with the live center, just to put some good pressure on it. And I'm just gonna let that sit for a couple of minutes. Make sure we got a good seat on there. I see the super glue squeezing out around it, which is good, but I wanna make sure it has a chance to dry real good. So it should be good and dry now, I hope. I'm just gonna take some light cuts on this and whittle it down. We've been whittling away at this, and we've got about 12 thousandths to go. I'm going to dial that in on my, got a dial indicator over here on the lathe, and this should be my final pass. Thousand shot. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just let it feed out and make a spring cut, come back out, and see if it takes any more off. On the money. All right, the last little operation we got here, there's a little, you look on the bottom of this one, a little recess in here. That's about 300 thousandths in, and I measured that it's about 15 thousandths deep. I've already got my cutter set about 300 thousandths from the edge. I'm going to touch off, use my dial indicator, go 15 thousandths, and just face toward the center. We're touching there. All right, let it cut toward the center. To break this bond, we're just going to use some heat. I'll come in here and just heat it up a little bit. Doesn't take a whole lot. Got it. The last step here is we need to drill in two little detents, two little holes in here, 1/4 inch diameter holes, so that we can put a spanner wrench on this to tighten it up and loosen it in. He specified he wanted a 1/4 inch hole. He does not want it to go all the way through. He wants to be a flat bottom hole. So we're going to actually use a center drilling end mill, which is one that will actually cut to the very center. It can be used kind of like a drill. A lot of end mills are not center cutting, so you have to make sure you have a center cutting end mill. And you can look at that by just looking to see if the cutters come all the way together in the center. If there's a gap or like a center, like 30-degree center in the middle, it will not drill through the center. So I've got this set up in my vise, and I did this off camera, but I'll tell you what we did. We put it on parallels. Notice I got some little brass shim stock on the sides. That's just to help protect the threads. And I haven't just cranked down this really hard. It's tight enough it's going to hold it, but we shouldn't be deforming any threads. I went in here with my edge finder, found the center in this direction first between the two vise pads. That put me in the very center. Then I come over here and use the edge finder again to find the edge on both sides of the diameter. And using my half function again, it got me right to the dead center. And then I moved over 1.25 inches. So these will be 2.5 inches apart on center when we get through. What I'm going to do is on depth, the total thickness of this is 250 thousandths. I think I'm going to go a little over halfway. So half would be 125. I think I'm going to go 175 thousandths. That should be plenty deep enough to be able to get the spanner wrench in there, but also leave a little bit of metal on the bottom that won't go through. So what I'm going to do is we'll crank up the mill. I'm going to just come over here and we'll touch down. I'm going to zero out my Z-axis on the digital readout, and we're just going to go up 125 or 175 thousandths. Let me get a little oil on that. All right, that's 175 thousandths feet. We'll raise back up, and using the dial in or the digital readout, I'll take it to 1.25 inches past center in the other direction. Right there. All right, the moment of truth here. See how everything goes together. So this disc, get that thread started, get it in the right place. All right, and then here's an adjustable spanner wrench. Has 2/4 inch pins on it. This will fit down into the holes, and you can use this as a wrench now to tighten that in. So that all looks good, and then the clearance here supposed to be just enough for that to pass down through. I think that's going to be fine as well. So anyway, I think we're going to call this project done. But once again, that'll be a wrap. I got this project knocked out today. It only took me probably about 3 hours to do. Wasn't too bad at all. So this part here is going back to Scott Andrews. Scott is going to see me in a couple of weeks up at the Arnfest event, at least a couple of weeks from when I'm filming this. It may not be that far off by the time you guys see it. But anyway, he's going to be there, so I'll be able to just drop this stuff off with him while I'm up there, and I'll be glad to have this one checked off the list. Scott, it's taken me way too long to get this done. I apologize, buddy, but we got her done. I know you said you weren't in a big hurry, so no big deal there. That'll be it. Appreciate you watching. As always, give me a thumbs up on here if you like what you saw. Subscribe if you haven't already, and leave some comments down there, and share it on social media so other folks can find the video as well and get some more subscribers in here. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you later.